Okay then, so would you believe it, children? Those two ladies are these ladies here. Isn't that amazing? Yeah? Great. All right then. So the first
still a bit of a delay.
Still a bit of a delay, but don't worry. I've just got to try and let the other school in now. We're joined now by Bessacar Primary. Hello.
Oh.
Can you hear us, Bessacar Primary? Okay. There they are. Can you hear us? How lovely to see you. How lovely to see you. Welcome. So just for you two, say welcome to the astronauts Anna and Sarah. Say hi. How much of a lag is there?
Yeah.
Welcome. Okay. So let's make a start. So I suggest we do this in order of what I've got on my screen. So Southfield Primary, do you have a question for the astronauts?
Yes, we've got a few questions.
My name is Esme Southfield Primary. How did it feel when you entered space? And did you have any second thoughts?
Who wants to take that one first?
I can jump in.
Okay.
That's a great question. When we got on the rocket, it is this incredible roller coaster where you start on the ground and you're moving at 0 miles per hour, and in 10 minutes you've reached 17,500 miles per hour and you're orbiting the Earth, and you are riding this incredible rocket. It's shaking, it's moving, it's this really incredible sensation. And as you are climbing out of the atmosphere, you're pushed back into your seat. So your face is getting pushed back, your chest is getting compressed, and it's this incredible weight that's pushing you as you accelerate out of our atmosphere. And as soon as you get to main engine cutoff, everything stops. You're thrown forward into your seat straps. And so you have 2 shoulder straps that are now the only thing holding you in place. And everything around you starts to float. So I had a little zero gravity indicator, a little dog named Asteroid who was flying with us. And the first thing I did was reach for Asteroid and float him, because everything is no longer constrained in the same way. And it's this incredible stillness. It's absolutely calm after an extraordinary ride to space. So I think more than anything, as soon as I got there, I was so excited to just play in weightlessness, see all the things floating. I definitely didn't have any second guessing as soon as we got there.
Fantastic. Anna, did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, I would just echo that there were no second thoughts. It was absolutely a joy and goes from an incredibly dynamic, full sensory overload experience of the 10 minutes of launch to an incredible stillness and peacefulness of floating in space. And it's just absolutely remarkable.
Fantastic. So no second thoughts then?
No.
No.
Would go again.
Oh, good. You see, if that were me, I would be thinking, what the hell have I done? But thank you very much. Thank you very much for your question. Can we have a question from Highwoods, please? Mrs.
You might be
Baylor,
mixing
can
it
we
up.
have a question from Highwoods?
What unusual
And they might not
things
work.
have you seen in space?
Ooh.
We saw some really remarkable things in space. So some things that stood out, and I would say many astronauts see these things, but some things that stood out to me are, we got to see the aurora. Do you know what the aurora is? It's these beautiful lights, these green, sometimes red lights that go around our Earth, especially in like the northern and southern regions. But they were dancing across the top of our Earth. And then we got to see lightning from space, which was also beautiful. You know how lightning here on Earth is kind of powerful and in almost like aggressive and strong and maybe sometimes scary feeling. But in space, it's silent and it's like dancing across the tops of the clouds as the Earth goes by you. And it's this beautiful silent dance. It's just amazing. And then let's see, we also saw some Starlink satellites, which I thought was really cool too. Starlink is one of the things that we were testing on our flight, and that was it's a way of communicating over space lasers. And so we got to see some of those while we were up there and test them out.
Fantastic. What about you, Sarah?
I think one of the views that stands out to me is at nighttime. When you look out the spacecraft window, you have to let your eyes adjust because it's so bright in the spacecraft and so dark on the Earth at night. And once you do, and you look out, you can start to see this extraordinary star field unfolding. And it's the most stars you've ever seen and the darkest place you've ever been. But then you look at the Earth and you can actually see our atmosphere. And it's this thin layer around our Earth. It's really small compared to how big the Earth is, but you can actually see it illuminated almost green, and it's glowing. And this little bubble that keeps all of humanity alive. And it's incredible to see our planet and this protection system that keeps us safe.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, Oakley School, can you hear us? I think Oakley School are still having problems. Yes, we can hear us because we can't hear you. Can't hear you, unfortunately. But never mind. I hope you can get that sorted. Let's move on to Bessakar. Bessakar, do we have a question from Bessakar School? There we are.
Loud.
When you were inspired by another astronaut, was it because of learning something at school which made you want to become one?
Did you get that question, ladies?
I think it was what made us want to be astronauts. Was it something that we
Yeah,
learned in school?
I think so too. Yeah. Who wants to take that one?
We probably both can. Sarah, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So when I was little, I actually grew up as a violinist. My mother was my first violin teacher. She is a professional violinist and raised me from a very, very young age to play violin. And I didn't even know what engineering was until I was in high school and I met an astronaut for the first time. And I ended up talking with him and actually ended up working for him in high school. And he encouraged me to study engineering. And he said there's this entire field of creative problem solving where you get to look at different problems, figure out the best solutions and solve them. And it's total creativity, a lot of math, a lot of science, which I loved. And so I ended up studying aerospace engineering at University of Colorado in Boulder, Colorado in the United States. And it has entirely changed the direction of my life. So while I love music and I still play violin, I got to bring a violin with me to space, which was one of the most incredible things ever, to create music and bring art with me. But it's I love the problem solving and the engineering that led me ultimately to go work at SpaceX and help contribute towards the Dragon program, which is the spacecraft we went to space on. So very different route than maybe a lot of people, but I love both science and I love art, and this brought them together.
And I have to say, children, if you go to YouTube, there's a video of Sarah playing the violin in space. She did a wonderful performance, and she was joined by musicians all around the world. And you should look there. If you just go to YouTube and search for Sarah Gillis, you'll find it easier, very easy. And Sarah played the violin amazingly. It was a virtuoso, wonderful performance, I think.
Thank you.
I agree.
Look out for that on YouTube because it's never been done before. So a wonderful performance from Sarah playing the violin from space with orchestras on the ground. Can you believe that? It's amazing. Anyway, Anna, what about you?
So I fell in love with space when I was in the 4th grade. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and Houston is where one of the major NASA sites is located. And so I got to go on a field trip and on that field trip, I got to experience a day in the life of an astronaut, as well as what they call a mission control flight controller. It's the people in the room that help support the spaceship in space. And I loved it. I just fell in love with this kind of work. I thought it was so fun to solve problems together with this big team of people and get to do it for something in space. And so I decided from that moment that this was what I wanted to be a part of. And ever since then, I continually sought after chances to get to be a part of the space industry. And I have been so grateful every step of the journey when I have gotten to be there.
Great. Thank you very much. That's great. Okay, Michael, I think we've got a question from Aukley. They're asking their questions through the chat because they've got sound problems. So
Yeah,
what's the
sure.
question from Aukley?
Okay. The question I've got is, what has been your scariest moment in space?
Who wants to take that one first?
I can start. I will be very honest. I didn't feel fear once when I was in space.
Oh, wow.
I think it was a testament to how much we had seen the SpaceX team and all the teams that were supporting this mission and how they had developed it. It gave me a lot of trust in the technology behind it, the thoughtfulness behind so many backup plans if something didn't go well. And then I also knew all the people that were supporting us from the ground, and it's some of the smartest people I've ever met. And so I think that gave me a lot of faith and trust also. I will say, like, one of the hardest things we did as a large team was to do the spacewalk. That required so many things to come together, and it took the team many years to figure out how to build a spacesuit, how to make a spaceship that could go all the way down to the vacuum of space, keep people safe, come back up and be a spaceship again. But the team did it, and it was challenging, but then when we did it together as a team and we got to the other side and it went so well, it was the coolest feeling in the world.
Yeah, I was going to say actually that when I read that question, I thought it might be the spacewalk and depressurizing the spacecraft with you all in it, having no airlock as such. I just wonder whether that might have been a problem, but obviously it wasn't.
No.
No.
Excuse me.
And I'll be honest, it felt like we were in a simulation when we were doing it in space.
Oh, right.
We rehearsed it so many times with the team on the ground that we were just executing, going through the motions like we had done 100 other times, and it felt like clockwork.
Okay. We've got another one from Auckland.
Just a moment, Michael. Let's ask Sarah about her scariest moment.
Yeah, sure.
Sarah's got to think about that.
No, I think I largely agree with Anna that you're so prepared for the mission.
Yeah.
We have gone through 2.5 years of training before the mission. And in that training, we really got to test ourselves and push our limits and learn how to challenge ourselves. And so one of the things we did in training was actually going skydiving. So this was maybe not during the mission, but it's build up to how you prepare yourself to go to space. You want to know how to operate in a high stakes environment. You need to trust your procedures. You need to trust your ability to execute under pressure. And so how we prepared for that is actually jumping out of an airplane. But we went to the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado. And they're one of the only places in our country that you can go for a couple days of training. And then your first jump is solo. So you're not jumping with anybody else. You're pulling your own ripcord. You're deploying your parachute. And so we ended up doing 5 jumps with them and really learned from the ground up how to do any of that. I had never even considered jumping out of a plane before. And so it was extremely challenging and extremely rewarding, just like Anna said, to know you can trust yourself, to take on hard challenges and know you can succeed and be supported by an incredible team along the way. So I would say right before I jumped out of that airplane was probably one of my only moments of fear, but it's very cool to conquer your fears.
Had you not jumped out of a plane before?
Never.
No. Oh gosh.
Wow.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. I nearly did once. A back tail. Okay, right. We're moving on then. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, ladies. Let's go back to Southfield Primary. Can we have another question from Southfield, please? Who's going to ask the next question? Yeah.
Wait a second.
You can ask us if you want to. Go ahead.
Oh.
If you weren't an astronaut, what would you want to be and why?
So if you weren't an astronaut, what would you want to be and why? Anybody? Who wants to take that? Do you want to take that one, Anna?
Sure. I
Okay.
have lots of things I love. Well, I would say I was already really thrilled doing the work I was doing before I became an astronaut. I loved being an engineer at SpaceX, and before that at NASA. I loved just being part of the space industry and working in mission control. Like that in and of itself was a dream come true for me. So I was very happy, and if I wasn't an astronaut, I would still be very happy doing that. If I were to do something totally different, I have a lot of dreams, but one that probably stands out to me a lot is I would love to be a doctor. I think I love medicine. I
A doctor,
love
really? Gosh.
helping people and caring for people, and I find it just a fascinating field. So I think that would be a totally different life path.
Wow. That is very different,
Definitely.
but still very much a team activity, eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Operations, team, science, all of it.
That's what it's all about.
Mhm.
Okay, Sarah, what about you? Would you want to be a professional violinist?
Maybe. I think I always had wanted to honestly be a dancer more than anything. Once I graduated high school and started an engineering degree, I actually started teaching myself dance. And so that was a huge love of mine, a different art form, but something that if I had time, I would love to pursue more of that.
What type of dance do you like? Or
All
just everything?
Ballet, classical, jazz, contemporary, you name it. I absolutely love it.
Okay. Right, I think it's the turn of Highwoods now. Can we have a question from Highwoods, please? Can you hear us, Highwoods? I think they've frozen.
What do you eat and you drink?
Could you repeat that, please? Could you repeat the question, please, if you can hear us? I think they're having problems. I think the question was, what do you eat in space? Did I hear that correctly?
That was what I was thinking too.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to answer that, Sarah, while you're there?
Sure. So we ate all sorts of things in space, and eating in space is really fun because you actually kind of get to play with your food because everything floats. And so we had, for the first couple days, we had fresh food, and that was things like pizza and empanadas and sandwiches and like some veggies, assorted vegetables. And that was really fun. It was kept cold by little pouches of coffee that they had frozen and used as the ice cubes in a cooler, basically. And so we'd take out a frozen pouch of coffee and let it thaw, and then we would have coffee for the day. And that was delicious. And then after the spacewalk, we had kind of more shelf-stable. I don't know if any of you have been camping before, but there's kind of like dried shelf-stable food like Cliff Bars or kind of packaged M&Ms or beef jerky, stuff like that was really tasty. And I think probably the most fun was with the M&Ms. You could like throw them across the spacecraft to each other and try and catch them or bounce them off the walls and have somebody go and chase it down. But it's just so much fun to eat and play with your food up there, honestly.
Oh, sounds enormous fun.
It was.
Because in the early days of space travel, children, the food was awful. It was just liquid sucked through a straw that didn't really taste very much. So this is luxury for the astronauts now. And it'll only get better, of course, as time goes on. Okay, I think we're back to Bessacar, are we not? I think we're back to Bessacar and then Auckley. Could we have a question from Bessacar, please?
Really loud. When returning back to Earth, how much G-force do you feel when you re-enter the atmosphere?
Oh, good question. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Do you want to take this one, Anna?
Sure. You get around 4.5 Gs when you're coming back at its peak. But the interesting thing about coming back to Earth is that the peak Gs last for a lot longer than they do when you're launching to space. When you're launching to space, you have, 20 seconds, maybe a minute of longer G forces, but on the way back, you might have 7 minutes of 4.5 Gs like pressing into your chest. And so you really notice it. I would say on top of that, what is a major kind of a difference from your sensations is that you've been adapted to microgravity at the point that you're coming back home. So 4.5 Gs when you're coming home actually feels heavier than 4.5 Gs when you're launching off the Earth in the first place. And so you feel it pressing for a long time. Your cheeks are being pulled back. You can barely lift your fingers off in your arms off your armrest, and you can't lift your head off the back of your chair. And so you just sit there and you're thinking, keep breathing, you're moving and keep moving your chest up and down. But I personally loved it. I thought it was a fascinating experience. So yes, but it lasts for a little bit.
Okay. And what about you, Sarah? Anything to add to that?
No, I think maybe one of the coolest parts about re-entry is you are actually using the atmosphere to slow the spacecraft down. So you're intentionally, smashing into the air as you come down. But because of that, the outside of the spacecraft gets extremely hot. And so we were coming in through darkness, which means as you're re-entering, you have this incredible light show over the windows where it starts with just kind of a pink glow, and the glow gets brighter and brighter until it feels like it's actually daylight inside the spacecraft, even though you're in the middle of the night. And then at a certain point, you start getting these colors, these sparks. There's greens and yellows and pinks and these like neon lights kind of flashing by your window. And re-entry is just this extraordinary light show as you're coming in. So not only are you in your seat, you're pressed into your seat and you're fighting the G-force that's pushing you back, but you also just have some incredible views.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And I believe, Michael, we have a sort of related question about the G-forces, don't we?
Yeah, we do actually.
Walkley, yes, another question from Walkley.
Yeah, this is the question. What is it like to walk or carry things after you have landed back on Earth?
I think the first thing I noticed was we have these tablets on our legs, little tablets that we use for reading procedures.
Yeah.
And as soon as we got back, I picked it up and it felt like the heaviest thing I've ever lifted. I was like, I can't even hold this. I have to put it back down again. Everything is so heavy as soon as you get back, and your brain adjusts to knowing how far to throw things in space or how much force to push stuff with to get them to move. Yeah. And so I think there was a couple things we threw across the room that we were totally wrong because our brains had recalibrated.
And how long does that feeling last? Does it go away fairly quickly?
What would you say, Anna?
I think for us it did. I will say I think I probably felt like things felt heavier than normal for maybe 24 hours. But, I suspect that if you were in space for a year, the readaptation would take a lot longer than being in space for 5 days. So we were able to adjust back pretty rapidly, I'd say.
Yeah, because don't forget, children, some astronauts have spent more than a year in space going around the Earth, and that must feel very strange when they come back. Because quite often they have to be helped up, don't they? They can't walk properly at the beginning. So, but it's no long-term thing. They're fine after, so don't worry. Correct. Yeah. What a weird experience, though.
Human body is fascinating,
isn't it? Endlessly fascinating. Mm-hmm. Okay, can we go back to Southfield, please? Question from Southfield.
Hello, I'm Anna May from Southfield Primary. Did you ever get rejected when you tried to go into space, or did you get accepted straight away? And is there a subject you had to work really hard at?
Who wants to take that one?
I can take a stab.
Okay.
definitely got rejected in life at multiple points. I remember when I was in college trying to get an internship with NASA, and it took multiple tries before I got one. I think that I am reminded over and over that it's not about getting it on the first try, that oftentimes it takes a lot of perseverance and a lot of belief in yourself to just keep going in the face of no's, in the face of doors that aren't open. But what I have found is that if you just keep trying, just keep believing in yourself, that oftentimes you find the path that's right for yourself.
Absolutely. Anything to add to that, Sarah?
I would say for me, even after I found engineering, it was in no way easy for me. I think I was behind on math. I was behind on a number of topics that would have been incredibly helpful coming into a degree in engineering. And there were so many times where I was ready to quit and I didn't want to do engineering and I hated it. And it was extremely overwhelming. And so I think it's to what Anna said, it's so important to believe in yourself and to keep trying and keep persevering, even when things get hard, because that's where you learn the most about yourself and the most about probably any topic you're learning about. So I would say there were many times that I failed on this journey, and all of those, though, I was able to learn from. And you should always be figuring out how you learn from every failure, because they are all lessons in disguise. So I would say for me, maybe to your other part of the question of were there any topics that you particularly had to study? All of engineering was new and different coming from an arts background. And so I had to study all of it a lot. And because of that, I learned a whole lot.
So I presume what you would say to the children, both of you, is that concentrate on the sciences if they want to be astronauts, yes?
I don't think I would say that. I would say science is certainly one path, but I think what's one of the things that's really exciting about the future and what we're living in right now is that more and more doors and pathways to space are opening up. And in a future where we have hundreds, thousands of people living in space, you're going to need people of all types. And so I think the more important thing is to do what you love and pursue what you love and what you find you're good at, because then you will enjoy doing exactly where you are. So just like I answered earlier that I was really happy being an engineer at SpaceX before I got to be an astronaut, you want to get to a place where you are happy doing what you're doing and you feel like it's using your skills and it's something that you're passionate about. And then you never work a day in your life.
That's it. It's so important to do something you love in life, isn't it? It really, really is the most important thing. Okay, can we have another question from Highwoods, please? Got another question ready there for us? No? Can you hear us, Highwoods? Okay, well, oh no, hang on. Somebody's got off. We have a question.
What is your favourite part of space travel?
Your favourite part of space travel? Thank you. Do you want to take that one, Sarah, first of all?
Sure. I think my favorite part of space travel is, man, there's so many favorite parts. But one of them is going to be seeing the Earth from that perspective, seeing our extraordinary planet with the oceans and the mountains and the textures and the colors, and getting to see all of it. At our highest point in our orbit, you would look out and you could see entire continents. You could see all of Africa. You could see an extraordinary distance where when you're thinking about taking a picture, you have a moment. You take the picture and then suddenly you're in the next continent, because that's how fast you're moving around this incredible planet. And at our lowest altitudes, you could see a contrail, so the cloud behind an airplane, where you could see the point of origin where there was an airplane, the trail coming off of it. And you could see kind of the highways in the sky of airplanes moving around the world. And it's this extraordinary ecosystem where you have all the people you've ever known and loved. You have all of humanity's creations and an extraordinary world that is absolutely beautiful. You can see the Sahara Desert and the reds and the browns and the landscape as it's moved with water and how it's moved with water. And it's just an extraordinary planet. And I hope so many of you someday get to see it from that perspective as space travel opens up and more people have an opportunity to go and view it.
Yes, because I think children one day going to space will be like getting on an aeroplane. It will be nothing special. Everybody will be doing it. And that's actually not that far away, not that many years away, I think, if all goes well. Thank you so much for the question. Right, Michael, do we have another question from Orkley?
Yes, we do. Okay, right. Bit of a technical one, I think, this one. What would happen if the spacecraft stopped working in the middle of space?
Who wants to take that one?
I can take that one.
Okay. So
we have so many backup plans if things stop working in space. It is mind-blowing how many backup plans there are. And it is one of the things that I love so much about the team behind the mission, is that they try to think of everything. And even if they miss something, they're really smart and they know how to solve problems very quickly and very well. And so, we have lots of plans to handle if things stop working, whether it's the oxygen system or our thrusters or any of the things that on the spacecraft. There's a lot of backup plans to try to get them to restart. And we always had a way to come home early if we needed to also. So that was always one of the things that gave me a lot of comfort, was that there was a great plan to be able to come home and we'd be able to be reunited with our family if something did go wrong. And I really credit the team behind the mission that makes sure all of that stuff is in place as backup.
Wow. Yeah. So you always felt in safe hands then?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Fantastic. What about you, Sarah? Any thoughts on that?
No, I think Anna's absolutely correct. If the spacecraft stops working, that's what we're all trained for. We have an entire team in mission control that's ready with procedures. We are in the spacecraft with procedures. And so really, you train for the worst today so that you're prepared in case that ever happens. But everything you see in space, it's so much better than what you see in training.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, thank you. Okay, it's back to Southfield then. Do we have a question from Southfield?
We do. Nice slide, Cece.
Hello, I'm Cece from Southfield Primary. How was the experience to climb out of the spacecraft and test new? How did it feel to have a beautiful view of our world and where we live?
Did you get that question okay?
Sarah, I feel like you should answer this one.
Yeah.
That's a great question. So for the spacewalk, we all got suited up. We put on these incredible suits that the SpaceX team built and tested, and you get pressurized. And so they fill up with air, and it's like being inside a really almost hard structure. It becomes this thing you have to move in very certain ways. You can rotate your shoulder, you can bend your elbow, but you can't just freely move your arms in every direction because it's actually a pressurized volume that you're inside, and it fights you. It pushes back against you as you try to move in it. So we all got suited up, and then once we knew we had, like, the suits were fully pressurized, they were safe, then we started venting the spacecraft, and you open valves and all of the air starts being basically just released from the spacecraft. And as the pressure starts to go down, the temperature changes. So you have this rush of cold across your body. You can almost see the air moving out of the forward hatch because there's these soft panels that are moving with airflow as it goes by. And then once we actually did open the hatch and crack it, you could see a couple small objects that we didn't quite secure that kind of got sucked out of the spacecraft, out the forward hatch before we went out. And so I started at the displays and controls. So I was sitting there watching all of the telemetry, all of the pieces of information about the spacecraft, telling us if it's healthy, if our suits are holding their pressure, if the systems are working as they're supposed to. And so Jared was the first one out, and he, went outside and experienced basically exactly what we trained for, really testing out how the suit moves, how it, what it feels like to actually walk in space, which really isn't true. We aren't walking because we're just floating. So you don't really have to walk in space, but you get to use your hands and kind of manipulate your suit, the spacesuit, as you go out of the spacecraft. And so Jared and I then swapped, and I had an opportunity to do that. And it's very much like physical problem solving. If any of you have ever gone rock climbing, where you are at one point and you need to figure out how to move the joints you have available to you, your arms in certain ways to get to where you need to go. But once I was outside, I actually came outside in darkness. So the sun had set and it was nighttime. And because of that, it was incredibly dark outside our spacecraft, where I really couldn't see anything but darkness. I could see a very, very faint line of the Earth, a blue line, but really was focused on a little heads-up display down at my chin that has information about the suit pressure, temperature, humidity, and then getting through all of the physical tasks that we had to do as part of our test matrix for the objectives on the spacewalk. But it was, just like Anna said, it was exactly like training. We were so prepared for every contingency. We had trained the movements over and over and over again on the ground. And so by the time we were actually doing it, I think we could have done it in our sleep and knew exactly what to do. So it was very cool. I think my favorite part was after we repressurized the spacecraft. So once we came back inside, closed the hatch, we basically add all sorts of air back into the spacecraft. And as soon as we opened our helmets, it was the cleanest air I've ever smelled because it was brand new air that had just been added.
Wow, such an experience. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, let's go back to Bessakar then. A question from Bessakar, please.
What was your coolest experiment in space?
Anna, you should take that one.
What was the coolest experiment in space? That was the question?
I think so, yes.
So we did about 40 science experiments in space. So that meant that our days were action-packed with science, which I think all of us loved. So I would say I don't have a true favorite. I loved so many of them. One that does stand out to me, and I think it's probably because I like medicine so much and I like procedures and getting, using my hands, things like that, was an experiment that we did where we used what's called an endoscope, which is a long, skinny camera, and you stick it down your nose, and you use this to take a video of your airway back here. And so this was the first time this had been done in space. And the reason we were doing this was so that we could inspect and see if our airways had changed in microgravity. Were they swollen? Did they have other changes? Because if you have to go to an emergency room and you have a really big medical problem, one of the first things they often do to you is they try to make sure that you have a good airway so that you can breathe. And so what we need to know, if we're going to take thousands of people to space, we need to know, hey, does that airway change in space? And so this was our first attempt at trying to understand what that airway looks like in space so that doctors can be really good doctors in the future when we have thousands of people living in space. And it was really fun. I loved doing it. Our whole crew helped out and made sure that the whole thing went smoothly, and it was a great experiment.
I bet it was a bit uncomfortable putting that endoscope up your nose, though, wasn't it?
You numb it first. And so that was probably the uncomfortable part, I would say. Really, it just made me sneeze a lot as I was numbing it. So I just kept sneezing. But after you get it numb, then it's really actually quite easy.
Gosh, because I remember with COVID tests,
it felt like a COVID test at first. Yep.
I'm sure that was really uncomfortable. Okay, lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on to Highwoods then. Can we have another question from Highwoods then, please? Who's next from Highwoods? Hello. Not sure if we're having a problem with Highwoods. Can you hear us okay?
How do you sleep in space?
Sorry, go on. Could you repeat that, please?
How do you space?
How do you sleep in space? Wow, that's a good question. Thank you so much. Who wants to take that one?
To sleep.
Yeah, great. Good question. Thank you. Who wants to take that one?
I can take it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Sarah.
So sleeping in space is actually really easy because when you are sleeping in a bed, if you're on one side of your body, you might get uncomfortable and you have to roll over. But that's because you're being pushed into your bed on that side. And so in space, you're floating the whole time. So you don't get the same aches and pains that you might have from sleeping on one side and needing to roll over in the middle of the night. So it's extremely easy to fall asleep in space because it's very comfortable. But we have basically sleeping bags that you roll out, and they have some Velcro straps so you can secure them to the footrest. And you climb inside, zip yourself in. But one of the important things about sleeping in space is you want to secure yourself with something. And so you can use like the seat belt across your shoulder in your seat bucket, for instance, because if you don't, you're going to wake up somewhere else in the spacecraft. The air is constantly moving around the spacecraft to help circulate our atmosphere there. And so because of that, if you don't secure yourself, it might carry you around in the spacecraft, and you might have gone to sleep, in your chair, and you might wake up on the floor or at the ceiling or on a wall somewhere because the air plays games with you if you aren't secured. So generally, it's very easy to sleep. I would say we were very busy, so we maybe didn't sleep a lot on the mission, but it was very fun. You actually have to put window shades over the windows because otherwise you're going to encounter a sunrise every maybe 100 minutes. So you don't want that sunlight waking you up constantly throughout the night.
Wow, thank you. And what about you, Anna? How did you find it?
I found it great. It was peaceful. I would fall asleep, but I would use a seat belt over my sleeping bag to just hold my sleeping bag down. But I didn't hook my feet down, kind of purposefully. I was just comfortable. But by the morning, every morning, my feet would be at the ceiling, and I would be like semi upside down. It was great.
Yes, the thing is, children, even though you're traveling at 17,500 miles an hour, you don't feel any movement at all. If you've ever been on a train that isn't vibrating very much and you close your eyes, you don't know you're moving, and it's the same in space, except you're going a lot faster. But you don't realize you are. So thank you very much, Anna and Sarah. Okay, so can we have another question from Auckland, please, Michael?
Yeah, sure. Couple of questions. Well, I'll choose one anyway. Right. What do the stars look like from space?
What do the stars look like from space? Who wants to take that one?
I would say to me, they looked somewhat similar to Earth, but there were just so many of them. And kind of like Sarah was describing earlier, when you were able to adapt to the dark on the outside of the spacecraft and really look out into our universe and see the stars, it just was covered with stars. There were stars everywhere, and to me, that it's just one of the beautiful parts of our universe and the beautiful opportunity to see it with so little light blocking you.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. Anything to add to that, Sarah?
Yeah, I think you can definitely find your favorite constellations as you're out there. The stars look very similar to when you're on Earth. They don't sparkle in the same way as they do here on Earth. Because here on Earth, you're seeing stars through the atmosphere, and the upper layers of the atmosphere will be causing visual disturbances that actually help and cause the twinkle that you see. So the stars you see in space don't twinkle as much, but you can probably see so many more of them. So those were maybe the differences.
Wow, amazing. I'd love to see that. So, and children, in the UK, where you live, it's National Astronomy Week. So if you Google Astronomy Week, there's a map there, and you can see if there are any events near you, which I think there will be, because there are hundreds of events, and you can go out and look through some big telescopes perhaps and see the stars that you don't normally see. So there we are. Perhaps your teachers will be able to help you with that. Teachers, if you're listening, it's astronomyweek.org. And there's a map there where you can see what's going on in your area this week for astronomy. And it'd be lovely to get out and see the stars. Absolutely. So back to Southfield, I think.
I'd add to that, Andy, that the weather is not very good at the moment. It's actually awful where I am at the moment.
Yeah, but that's just you. Everywhere else in the UK, it's clear skies, Michael. You've always got a cloud over you, as you well know. So there we are. Okay, Southfield, hello. Would you like to ask a question?
Hi, I'm Poppy, and I want to know what the scariest thing you've ever seen in space was.
I had that question earlier, didn't we? The scary space.
Yeah, we did actually, but
yeah. Do you have another one? Is there another question? Perhaps. Hello.
What's the one thing that you? What is the one thing you take into space?
didn't get that.
No, I didn't get that. Could you repeat that for us, please? We couldn't hear that one. Have another go.
She asked, what was the one thing that you would love to take into space with you if you could?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Wow. So
Goodness, I think it's a good question. If I had a giant spaceship, I would love to take all the people that worked on the spaceship into space with us. I think there's so many people that contribute to making these missions possible. And there's a lot of people that dream of getting to go to space. And it would be so cool to get to all go up there together and get to do it as one big team.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely. Because they must feel, not frustrated, but, perhaps a little disappointed that they themselves will never have the chance to do it.
Yeah.
They might. The world is getting more and more opportunities. It's my hope.
Very true.
That's definitely a wonderful answer, though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. Yeah. I'm sure they'd love you for that. What about you, Sarah? What would you take?
Gosh, that's such a hard question. It really depends on how much room you have in space. We were obviously limited, and I got to take exactly what I wanted, which was a violin.
Yeah.
But even that was really hard. It had to go through all sorts of testing. It had to be put in a vacuum chamber. I flew a short bow, so it's like this big instead of this big. And so if you have a really large spacecraft, I think it would be extremely cool to bring more instruments and maybe bring an orchestra up to
space.
Oh gosh, yeah. Because one question that us here at Space Oddities were wondering, how did the microgravity affect the playing of the violin? Did you have any problems playing it?
I definitely had to adjust. So the first time we took it out and I started playing, what I discovered is when you're playing on the fingerboard and you're shifting up and down, you're actually pushing or pulling the violin. And so because of that, it's constantly almost trying to get away from you. It's sliding around. Nice. And so you really have to secure it with your chin, and you're like actively holding it down, and that hurts. It doesn't feel great. And so you definitely have to learn how to play so that you actually hit the right note by the time you get there. The bow, because it was short, was actually pretty similar to playing on the Earth, where it's already pretty light. And so when you bounce it, you're mostly controlling it with your hand and not gravity.
Yeah.
I was wondering that, whether you had to put more pressure on. Obviously, you got the gravity with it when you're holding the bow with your hand. Yeah. But I wonder if you needed to put pressure on physically because you hadn't got the gravity.
Yeah, the bow, because it was short, was pretty easy to play with. I did have to hold my feet and tuck them under something to keep myself still.
Okay.
Because as soon as I would let go, I'd start spinning. And so it was a lot of fun and a lot of chaos in the spacecraft trying to film me playing violin.
Wow.
But it was a lot of fun.
It was quite a sight to see as well.
Yeah.
And as I said, it was a beautiful performance. Absolutely.
And an excellent choice of music as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Although last week on Space Oddities, as a sort of a trailer for today, we showed your video and we immediately got a copyright claim on it. Not the performance, the composition, we got a copyright claim. Yeah. But it doesn't matter. It's no problem.
Yeah.
So it's worth doing. It was worth doing. So there we are. I think we got time for about one more question. So I think we are back. I've forgotten where we are. So I think we're back to Bessakar, if I remember rightly. So can we have one question from Bessakar, please, just to finish today?
How did you get out of the loaded store?
Did anybody get that? I didn't get that.
No, I didn't.
Could you repeat that for us? Sorry.
Really loud. How do you get out of the loading pod when it returns to Earth?
Right.
Oh.
I think the question is how did they get out of the spacecraft when they returned to Earth? Was that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Great. Okay. Right. So who wants to take that one?
I can take it.
Okay. Thanks, Anna.
Sure. So when we got back to Earth, there's a recovery ship. We splashed out in the ocean. There is a ship that is nearby, and they take a little tiny, what they call a fast boat, and they bring it over to where the spaceship is. And some people, some awesome SpaceXers, jump on the spaceship and start harnessing it so that it can be lifted by the whole recovery ship and brought on. So that all happens first. It takes 30 to 60 minutes to get the spaceship actually on the big boat. And then when we're on the big boat, they open the hatch and we see people for the first time since we blasted off from Earth. And that was so fun. And these were people that we'd worked with and trained with. So we gave them big hellos, and they let us walk ourselves out of the spaceship. So our commander had been to space before, and so he gave us a good tip before we got out of our seats, like, hey, when you stand up, just stand there for a few seconds, make sure you're stable, because you haven't felt Earth's gravity for quite a while. So we each stood up in the spaceship, got stable, and then crawled out of the hatch, wearing our spacesuits. And there were some people that were on the side there to help us if we needed it. But we were able to just walk out, and then we went off and we got checked up and everything was great. And then we got whisked off the ship via a helicopter back to our families.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What about you, Sarah? Any recollections about that?
No, it was as soon as you splash on the water, it's like this weight is lifted off your chest, and now you're just waiting for the recovery ship to come and get you out. Once we were on the boat, you get kind of chucked out in the medical bay, and they have some food for you there. And so we got to have some snacks. Some fresh fruit was my favorite, because we hadn't had that in a number of days. But it was just a seamless operation. The recovery team is so well trained, and it was so cool to see them on the spacecraft in the water, and then on the boat, get to hug them all before we got to go see our families.
Fantastic. I can imagine that's not like a normal family reunion, is it? Where have you been? Oh, I've just been in orbit. Fantastic. All right then. Listen, I'm afraid time has got the better of us, children. We would like to say to all of you, thank you so much for being here, and your questions have been wonderful. And I think, first of all, let's give Anna and Sarah a big round of applause to say thank you for being here and to congratulate them on their wonderful That's wonderful. And the second thing is, children, every one of you in all of the schools are going to get a little present from us at Space Oddities for being here today. Your teachers will give you that soon. It's only a little present, but it's something space related. So we hope you enjoy that. And every one of you that is here today is going to have a little present. All right. So thank you for being here. Teachers, thank you so much for helping us out with this. We hope it's been a good experience for everybody. Oh, how wonderful. Look at that. Okay, we're going to say goodbye now. Sarah and Anna, do you want to say anything to the children just to finish off?
I just wanted to say thank you for your amazing questions. Thank you guys so much. It was such a joy to talk with you all. You had such great questions, and we are rooting you on. Keep dreaming big and working hard, and we will be so excited to see what you do in your futures.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sarah, anything to add to that?
No, it was so wonderful to talk to you guys today. I hope you keep asking great questions and staying curious. And who knows, maybe some of you guys will end up going into space in so many different capacities. But hopefully some of you someday will actually get to go to space. That would be incredible. So, you know, believe in yourself, believe you can do it, dream really big dreams, and can't wait to see how that all unfolds. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. A big thank you to Anna and Sarah for being here. So from all of us here at Space Oddities, from Anna and Sarah, goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.